Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. I am Chris Veach, and we are celebrating Evansville High School football, 100 years, millions of memories. This year, we're honoring the centennial of high school football in the River City, and we're talking to former players and coaches who helped shape history on the gridiron and made memories under the Friday night lights. What a special way to kick things off. Once upon a time, there were not one, not two, but 3 Catholic high schools in Evansville. Yes, we know about Memorial and Mater Dei, but from 1956 to 1972, there was another Catholic school located on First Avenue. Where Ivy Tech currently sits, that was once the home of Rex Mundi High School. And for the short time the school was open, the football program had quite the success. Well, joining me now was a former assistant coach at Rex Mundi from 1962 to 1967, Joe Rohleder. Joe, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, you're welcome.
All right, Joe. Well, you actually played football at Jasper High School. So how did you end up getting that assistant coaching job at Rex Mundi?
Well, I went to U of E, or actually it was Evansville College back then. And fresh out of college, and they had a fresh new high school. I thought that would be a good place to start. I sure didn't go there for the money. We got paid nothing to coach. I thought it was a privilege.
Privilege indeed. Well, Ken Coudray, he was known as probably the top coach at Rex Mundi, where he led the Monarchs, and yes, that was their nickname, the Monarchs, to an undefeated season in 1970. You got to work with Coach Coudray. Can you just tell us, what was he like to work with?
Well, Ken was a good guy, but he was a lineman, and so we only had 3 coaches there, Frank, Will, and Ken, and I, in 1962, so Ken was a line coach, Frank was a line coach, so they were rough, tough people, and Ken was a good man and good to work with. Okay,
well, as I said, Rex Mundi had a lot of success in football, including producing, well, quite the star quarterback. You may have heard of him. His name is Bob Greasy, 2-time Super Bowl champion and Hall of Famer. So you got to work with Bob during his high school days. Just tell me, what was he like as a player to work with?
Well, to begin with, Bob was one heck of an athlete in everything, you know, but he was only 6'1", not real big, but he was a starting pitcher in baseball, and he's starting basketball, guard, and with football, I mean, he really didn't need a whole lot of coaching. With that much talent, you let them do what they want to do. But Bob did have an advantage. He went to school there in 1959. As a freshman, they were starting their season in football, but they only had freshmen and sophomores. And then they got juniors and then seniors. So he started as a quarterback for 4 years. The first coach was a guy by the name of Ed Lobby, and he was kind of a football guru and started the program there. And then I think the last 2 years, Bob was with Ken Coudray. And, you know, Bob, he did everything. He was a kicker, a punter. He would probably be a lineman. He was a defensive back. He did everything. And I don't know if people know it or not, but when he went to Purdue, he was a starting quarterback at football, but he also started as a basketball guard on the varsity team, and he also pitched at baseball until they told him that you got to concentrate on one thing, and then he had to concentrate on football. But the guy had a tremendous amount of talent. And not only that, he was like a Peyton Manning. In the huddle, he would tell people what to do, and he told them what they did wrong.
Wow. It's really nice to have a leader like that, especially such a talented one, especially when you're talking about Bob Greasy. Now, Joe, Rex Mundi, it did not have its own on-campus football stadium. Modern-day Memorial don't either. The Monarchs actually had to play their games at Bossy Field. So what was that like, playing games at such a historic venue?
Well, Bossy Field, it was different because you had the dirt and you had the grass. So if it was not raining, that was better. But if it was raining, you might be running along and hit the dirt and mud, And the fans sat pretty far back if they were on the other side. And the other thing, I don't know if all the teams did it that way, but a lot of times both teams would be on the opposites, on the same side. They wouldn't be on opposite sides. And that could present a problem, with football, especially if it got pretty competitive.
Oh, I imagine. Would you say that gave Rex Mundi home field advantage?
Well, it did in one game when Bob Greasy was quarterback with Tell City. If you go back and look at it, they had claimed there was a sleeper play. And we ended up beating Tell City, who had a tremendous football team. I think they might have had a guy by the name of Bob Crown. I'm not sure of that, but Crown, of course, was a heck of an athlete. Started on a basketball team at U of K. But anyway, at that time, a receiver had to be within 10 yards of the huddle when they called a play. And we had, not on purpose, we had 10 guys on the field, and then we sent somebody in, and we had a receiver on the side. I don't think the other team could see the receiver, and he went down, and in the end zone, Bob hit him for a touchdown in order to beat Tell City. So that was quite a game.
Well, sounds like it. Wow. Now, obviously, you didn't coach all at Rex Mundi. You then went to Jasper, accepted assistant coaching there. 30 years, I believe. Is that correct? That's how?
Yep, 30 years.
Up until your retirement. A lot of success there. So can you tell me, was there something that you were able to carry over from your assistant coaching gig at Rex Mundi to your new job at Jasper?
Well, when I went to Jasper, I was a back and offense and defense. Back when we played college, you had to play both ways. But I learned at Rex Mundi coaching that you win and lose games not with backs but with linemen. So I had a good experience of 2 line coaches and learned that the games are won in the trenches, not with the backs. It's pretty hard to run if you don't have a hole.
Oh, it is.
That was pretty important going to Jasper, and I ended up being defensive coach at Jasper and also coached the line when I first started there. So that was a good experience.
Well, a few years after you left Rex Mundi, it was 1972, and due to a drop in enrollment, Rex Mundi closed its doors. What was your reaction when you heard that Rex Mundi had closed down?
Well, I was surprised because Rex Mundi was a new school, a new building, and in an area where Evansville was just beginning to spread out, But it was a money issue, and probably they could get more money for Rex Mundi than they could Modern Day or Memorial. They weren't going to get rid of Memorial, so it would have been Modern Day or Rex Mundi. So I think that's the big reason that they ended up closing that.
All right. Well, Joe, do you still keep in touch with some of those former players that you coached at Rex Mundi?
Yes, I do. Somewhat. I get to see them occasionally, and it's. I mean, Rex Mundi had a lot of good athletes through the years that they were open. It was tremendous, and I realized and coaching, you better have the horses or you don't win. I don't care who you are.
Oh, well said. Yeah. Well, Joe, thank you so much for joining us. Congrats on having such an amazing coaching career. I appreciate you taking the time and talking to us about this. And, hopefully you remain in touch with all those Rex Mundi players and just keep remembering all those great times.
Yeah, one other thing I would like to say.
Of course.
About Evansville football. If you look back at the history, guys like Gene Logal at Memorial, Len Will at Mater Dei, they were phenomenal football coaches for their era and offensive minded. I couldn't believe the offenses they ran at that time. Of course, there was Herman Byers. I was going to talk about the game with Wrights that we had with Rex Mundi, but if you're out of time, that's okay.
No, actually, I got plenty of time, Joe. I'd love to hear that.
Well, you have to go back into the papers because whenever time flies by, you always think it's bigger and better. But it was a big game when we played Wrights, and that was Bob's senior year. And I don't know for sure, but I would say there was 10,000 plus people there.
Wow.
And that was in the Herman Byers era. Of course, Rex Mundi, being small, we had 35 guys out for varsity football. Wrights probably had 85 or 90. You know, they had a defensive team, an offensive team, and a punting team, and they beat us 7-0 in the last part of the last quarter, and we just wore out, But it was a 7-0 game and one heck of a game. And of course, the other thing I was going to say about Bob Greasy, I mean, in college he was a kicker, a quarterback as a kicker. You don't hear about that very much. And I don't know, you may have to ask him, but I think he wanted to go to Notre Dame, but they didn't want him because he was too little. So he went to Purdue, and all he did, I think, was beat Notre Dame one time when he was there.
I'm sure he enjoyed beating Notre Dame when he was there.
Yeah. But anyway, that Wrights game was something else. And, of course, coaching against Memorial North was also a rival because they were close to us. And, you ought to have someone talk about Archie Owens and Morris Riley. Those guys were good. And Don Watson out at Harrison, they were all great coaches, and did a lot for the history of football in Evansville. But
I'm definitely going to be talking to a lot of big names from the past on this. I'll definitely make sure to reach out to those, Joe. But I do, again, want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about and reminiscing about Rex Mundi and Evansville High School football.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
All right, thank you, Joe. All right, well, be sure to continue to follow us on TriStateHomepage.com as we continue to celebrate Evansville High School football. 100 years, millions of memories. I'm Chris Veach. We'll see you on the next drive.